All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about something that is completely reshaping our world: artificial intelligence in medicine. This isn't just a small tweak, it's a revolution that could change everything we know about healthcare. And to really get our heads around just how big this is, let's start with a question that sounds like it's pulled straight from a sci fi movie.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. What if there was a perfect virtual replica of you living inside a computer? An AI model that could run simulations, test out different treatments on digital you, and even predict how your health might look years down the road. It sounds wild, I know, but this isn't fantasy. It's something that scientists and doctors are working on as we speak.
So, this incredible idea actually has a name. It's called a digital twin. And this is way more than just a folder with your medical records. It's a living, breathing digital model that learns and adapts over time. It can help doctors see exactly how a treatment will affect you. And this whole concept is the perfect way to frame our conversation because it shows both the unbelievable promise of AI and the very real dangers we need to watch out for.
So let's start with the good stuff. Where is AI already making a massive, tangible difference? And I'm not talking about theories or future possibilities. This is happening in hospitals right now.
A fantastic example is in radiation oncology, treating cancer. When you're using radiation, precision is absolutely everything. You have to zap the cancer cells without harming any of the healthy tissue around them. And historically, planning that has been an incredibly slow, painstaking process. A huge part of that planning is a process called contouring. And in the past, this meant a doctor had to sit down with a stack of scans and literally by hand trace the outline of the tumor and every single organ nearby, the heart, the lungs, you name it. This could take hours of intense, focused work for just one patient. But this is where AI steps in. And what's so cool is how it works. The AI isn't replacing the doctor, not at all. It's more like the world's best assistant. It does that first grueling pass of drawing the lines, which takes it minutes instead of hours. And then the physician comes in and uses their human expertise to fine-tune everything, to make those final critical adjustments. It's the perfect team-up of human and machine. And the breakthroughs don't stop there. Think about how doctors track if a tumor is shrinking. The old way was to measure a single line across the widest part of it on a 2D scan. But tumors aren't flat, are they? They're 3D. So using AI, we can now calculate the tumor's entire volume. The analogy here is perfect. Just measuring a lake's width doesn't tell you how much water is actually in it. But knowing the total volume, that gives you the real story. It's a much, much better way to know if a treatment is really working. Okay, so the tech is amazing, but that's only one side of the coin. How are the actual people on the front lines, the doctors, the patients? How are they reacting to all of this? Well, it's a lot more complicated than you might think. We often hear this simple story that professionals either hate new technology and resist it, or they just blindly accept it. But the reality on the ground is so much more interesting. Doctors are actually getting creative and strategically figuring out how to make AI work for them. There's a formal name for this: interactive governance. But all that really means is that doctors aren't just passive users of a new tool. They are actively negotiating its place in their workflow. They're figuring out how to manage the changes AI brings to make sure it's serving them and their patients, not the other way around. And this plays out in a few really interesting ways. Sometimes it's a division of labor. Senior docs make the final call, while junior doctors handle the tech side of the AI. Other times, it's about teamwork across professions, like a doctor checking in with a pharmacist to validate an AI's prescription suggestion. Then you have direct collaboration, where a doctor might take an AI suggestion and build their own templates from it. And finally, they're pushing back, working with hospital leadership to challenge and improve the AI's programming. The key takeaway is that they are in the driver's seat, co-designing how this all works. And what about the patients? This is fascinating. Look at this data from cancer patients. An overwhelming majority, almost 80%, are open to having AI as part of their care. That's a huge sign of trust. But, and this is a big but, look at the other numbers. More than a quarter are still worried about mistakes, and almost nobody feels like they actually know what's going on. Only 16% feel informed. So you have this huge gap. People are willing, but they haven't been brought into the conversation. And that information gap leads us straight to the biggest hurdle for AI in medicine: building and keeping our trust. And this isn't just about a gut feeling. It's about hard data, solid regulations, and real evidence. So first, just take in this number. By the end of 2023, the FDA had cleared almost 700 medical devices that use AI.
700. That's not a small number. This technology is out there, in our hospitals, right now.
But now, hold that big number in your head and look at this one. Of all those devices, what percentage do you think were backed by the absolute gold standard of medical evidence, a randomized clinical trial? Just 1.6%. Let that sink in for a moment. That is a massive gap between how quickly we're rolling this tech out and how rigorously we're testing it. And when you don't have that rigorous testing, well, things can go wrong. We've seen 113 recalls for these AI devices. And what's the number one cause? Look at the chart. Over 75% of the time, it's a problem with the software, the very heart of the AI itself. And these aren't just abstract numbers. These are real-world failures with serious consequences. We're talking about a software glitch that might bring up the wrong patient's data, or a machine making so much noise during a scan that it could actually cause hearing loss, or another one underestimating a radiation dose. These aren't just bugs, they're real risks to patient safety. And honestly, this next number might be the scariest of them all. A staggering 95.5% of these AI devices cleared by the FDA failed to report the demographics of the people they were tested on. If you train an AI model mostly on data from one group of people, how on earth can you trust it to work safely and effectively for everyone else? This is literally how you hard-code bias into our healthcare system. Okay, so that's a lot of heavy stuff. The challenges are real, no doubt about it. But the good news is researchers and developers are already coming up with some really smart solutions to build AI that we can actually trust. One really clever strategy is to rethink how we use things like large language models, or LLMs. If you use an LLM by itself, it can sometimes just make things up. They call it hallucinating. But a much safer way is to use the LLM as a kind of smart translator. It doesn't come up with the answer itself. Instead, it goes and finds the answer from a trusted, approved medical source and then presents it to you. It's a facilitator, not a know-it-all. Another huge insight is that building trust in technology often has very little to do with the tech itself and everything to do with people. There's this model called supportive accountability, which shows that we're way more likely to trust and use a digital tool if we have a real human, a coach, a clinician, supporting us along the way. That human relationship provides accountability, legitimacy, and a bond of trust. The tech alone just isn't enough. And what about that massive data problem? Well, one of the most exciting solutions is called synthetic data. Researchers can now create huge artificial data sets that have all the same statistical patterns as real patient data, but without using a single piece of real private information. This is a total game changer because it lets us train AI on much more diverse data from the very start without any privacy risks. So when you put it all together, the path forward is all about collaboration. This quote really nails it. We need to move to a world where physicians are active partners in designing these AI systems, making sure that the tech actually helps them do their jobs better, instead of getting in their way. And that brings us right back to where we started. The technology, the code, it's all advancing at a dizzying pace. The potential to create those digital twins, to revolutionize treatments, to save lives, it's all right there. But the real question, the one we all have to answer, is this. As the code gets smarter and faster, can our ability to regulate it, to ensure it's fair, and ultimately to trust it keep up?